You've probably heard this rule before. You can safely withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year. Well, that rule was written back when gas was $1.25 a gallon, CDs paid 6%, and the average retirement lasted maybe 20 years. The world's changed a bit since then, hasn't it? Today, that same old 4% rule could quietly drain your savings faster than you think. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the math doesn't add up like it used to. Let's make this simple. The 4% rule was meant to give you peace of mind, a way to take income from your nest egg without running out of money. But with longer lifespans, higher prices, and unpredictable markets, that safe number might not be so safe anymore. So let's walk through what's changed, why it matters, and what smart retirees are doing differently in 2025 and beyond to make their money truly last. The 4% rule came from a study in the 1990s called the Trinity Study. Researchers looked back at decades of stock and bond returns, from roaring bull markets to recessions, and found that if you withdrew 4% of your portfolio each year, adjusted for inflation, you'd probably be fine for 30 years. That worked great for retirees in the 1990s. Back then, bonds paid 5% or more, the stock market was strong, and inflation was fairly steady. But today, bonds are barely keeping up with inflation. Groceries cost 25% more than they did just a few years ago. Healthcare costs are soaring, and people are living well into their 90s. That means your retirement might not last 20 years. It might last 35. That's good news for your health, but tough news for your wallet. Here's what that really means. Imagine you retire with $1 million. The old rule says you can safely take out $40,000 a year. But if inflation runs at 3% a year, in just 10 years, you'd need about $54,000 to buy the same amount of stuff. Meanwhile, your investments might not grow fast enough to keep up, especially if the market hits a rough patch early in retirement. Let's say you retire in 2008, right before the market crash. You start withdrawing 4%, and suddenly your $1 million becomes $700,000 within a year. Now you're taking 4% from a smaller pot, which means your balance shrinks even faster. That's what financial planners call sequence of returns risk. It's a fancy way of saying, if the market drops early in retirement, you could run out of money years sooner than expected. But here's what most people miss. The 4% rule isn't broken because you made a bad decision. It's broken because the world changed. Now before you panic, it's not time to throw the 4% idea out the window. Think of it like an old recipe. It still works, but you've got to tweak the ingredients. Experts like Morningstar and Fidelity have updated their numbers and now say a 3.3% withdrawal rate is a safer bet for today's environment. That means instead of taking $40,000 a year from $1 million portfolio, you start with around $33,000. Not as exciting, I know. But here's the upside. That smaller drawdown gives your investments more breathing room, so your money has a better chance of lasting 30+ years. And let's be real, most retirees don't spend the same every year. You probably spend more in the early years, on travel, home upgrades, or grandkids, and then spending naturally slows down later. That's why having flexibility matters more than sticking to a rigid rule. Here's where smart retirees separate from the rest. They use a flexible withdrawal plan instead of a fixed one. Here's how it works. If your investments grow 8% this year, take your full 4%. Enjoy it. But if the market drops or inflation spikes, cut back a little, maybe 3% or less, to give your portfolio time to recover. Even a small adjustment like that makes a big difference. Vanguard ran the numbers and found that retirees who trimmed withdrawals during bad years were nearly twice as likely to make their money last. You can also use something called a guardrail strategy. It's a simple system that says, if your portfolio grows above a target, you can give yourself a raise. If it drops below a target, you lower your withdrawals temporarily. It's flexible, realistic, and doesn't require complicated math. Just a willingness to check in once a year and adjust. Now let's talk about guaranteed income. One of the smartest ways to make the 4% rule work again is to cover your basic expenses. Things like housing, food, and healthcare, with income sources that don't depend on the market. That might mean Social Security, a small pension, or even a low-cost annuity. Here's why that matters. If your basic needs are guaranteed, then your investment withdrawals are just for lifestyle, not survival. You can ride out market dips without panic selling. You can reduce your withdrawal in bad years and let your investments rebound. If you think about it, the 4% rule was always about one thing: peace of mind. And peace of mind comes from knowing your income covers your life, not just your bills. So how do you find your personal safe number? Here's a quick step-by-step guide. 1. Add up your total retirement savings. 2. List your yearly expenses, everything from groceries to Netflix. 3. Subtract any guaranteed income like Social Security or pensions. 4. Whatever's left, that's the amount your savings must cover. Now test it with 3%, 3.5%, and 4% withdrawal rates. If 3% covers it, great. You've got a strong buffer. If you need 4% or more, that's your cue to look at lowering expenses, working part-time, or finding small ways to generate income. And remember, retirement isn't one long straight line. You can adjust as you go. The retirees who check in, rebalance, and adapt every few years are the ones who stay financially secure without feeling restricted. In my opinion, the 4% rule isn't dead. It's just outdated. It was designed for a world of steady markets, high interest rates, and shorter retirements. What matters now isn't the number, it's your flexibility. The retirees who succeed today aren't the ones who picked the perfect rule. They're the ones who learned to adjust the plan. If you can remember one thing from this video, make it this: a good retirement plan bends, it doesn't break. So if you're looking at your account statement wondering, will my money really last? Take a breath. You don't have to overhaul your life or chase the next hot stock. You just need to make small, smart adjustments. Keep your spending flexible, your income steady, and your mindset calm. That's how you outsmart the old rule and build a retirement that truly lasts. One that lets you enjoy your time, not worry about it. Optional rehooks. The 4% rule worked when CDs paid 6%, not when groceries go up 6%. If your plan doesn't bend, it'll eventually break. Most people focus on what they withdraw. Smart retirees focus on what they keep.